Coastal North Carolina is starting to get nice and hot. We're about to be up in the 90s consistently, so you know, it is what it is. But I wanted to do something a little bit different today, and I want to go over and just discuss why I think gardening is so important and why I think you guys are so great. Today, I'm not just going to sit here and talk. I'm actually going to do some work for once. I've got to get these tomatoes standing back up straight. So we're going to work on that while we do this. In the world we live in today, there are a lot of different things that you can do and be, right? And just break it down into simple categories. Somebody asked me one time if I was a maker, and I didn't know what that meant. But he asked me, and I went and I did a little bit of, I felt kind of stupid, and not knowing what it was, so I didn't say like, what's a maker? So apparently it's a term. And I went and looked it up, and it was like, you make stuff. Well, yeah, we make food. We do all kinds of stuff in our garden. I mean, we absolutely do. But I think when it comes down to it, I'm not a maker at all. The other thing you can be is a fixer, right? So yeah, I'm out here and I am going to be fixing something. I'm in the garden with a hammer, right? There is nothing better than a hammer. I'm just joking. Nothing good can come out of this. But we're gonna fix this, and what I'm gonna do is I've got these nails, and I'm just gonna nail them into the side of the bed, and then I'm gonna tie off the cages to give them some support to it. So that's what we're gonna do today. But so you can be, a fixer. Well, a fixer is great, and yeah, we definitely fix things. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Now, I am gonna put these in the top of the bed and try and put them in between the pepper plants so I don't mess them up. So yeah, you can definitely be a fixer. But what we as gardeners are, we're producers. And that is something that's really important. That's the backbone of our society, I believe. If you look at it, farming and gardening is producing, right? We're producing something, and that's really important. So producing food is a huge, huge feat, and what you do is not easy. Yes, some of us may make it look easy. Y'all like that Dutch tilt I got on this camera right now? It looks like a horror movie. But, some of us make it look easy, and some of us make it look difficult. But overall, what it is we are producers, and that's really, really important for a lot of reasons. Just to take something, damn, there's my thumb. Just to take something and start a seed, and then produce harvestable, edible food out of that seed is an amazing feat. And there's so many different ways you can do it, right? And there's so many different tasks and times and techniques and just all these different ways to actually produce is something that just always has amazed me beyond belief. Skills to pull off this task is really exciting, if you ask me. I mean, like today, for instance, like this task right here, this isn't a monumental task I'm doing. It's relatively simple, but it makes all the difference in the world. So, I mean, all I'm doing, and hopefully you can see this since I don't have the camera in my hand, but we're going to take this and do something very simple, right? And you may be thinking, okay, yeah, whatever, Ben. You're just tying up a tomato plant. But really what this one task does is by putting a 1-cent nail in and using it to pull that plant up like so, which now that I'm looking at it, I may have to do multiple ways, but this will help this plant grow so much better. And so we use this to our advantage. Let me get my knot in here. If you're wondering what I put on these, I put a clove hitch on the nail. And then look at that. So I'm gonna have to absolutely do another string to it. But you can see now we're gonna get light all the way around. So when somebody asks, like, are you a fixer, are you a producer, what are you? I mean, dude, you're everything when you do this stuff. You produce, you fix. I'm fixing right now. We make. And the thing is it improves your self-reliancy. And self-reliancy is really important. You know, is your garden going to feed you solely for the year? And some of you, the answer may undoubtedly be yes, it will. But some of you may be like, no, it's not. But it's absolutely going to make a difference. And it's going to make a change. And you will notice a difference in your grocery bills. If there was ever an emergency, you'll definitely notice a difference because you're going to have food when nobody else does, which is a huge deal. And actually, let's see, how's this one going to do? I'm tying this one and I'll run lower down. Another thing this does is it gives more airflow around the plant. So, you know, when you get all of these factors together, you can see that it's going to make a huge difference. And you are going to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. There are too many people out there now that don't have a clue about where their food comes from, right? So we're struggling, well, not we, but I am struggling with the idea of growing meat chickens. I don't really like it. It's not the way the chickens are raised. It's not the fact that we're killing them. What I don't like about it is the fact that the chickens grow so fast that if you don't kill them, if you don't cull them at the right time, it's inhumane to keep them alive. So we've raised layers for 15 years now. And so we're used to seeing how fast they grow. And now that we've got meat chickens, they're like triple the size in half the time. It's pretty amazing. So, you know, it's one of those things. Now, just to show you how I'm putting this on the tomato cage, I take my line. This is a very small line. I loop it and I just make a simple loop. Wrap it around, put it back through. I know my fingers are fat and you have a hard time finding them, but you'd be all right. And you make this little loop. And then we take, this is called the tag end of the rope. And as we loop it around, we put this in and pull it tight. And that will create, to hold it up. So it's just an easy way to do it. This is throwaway line, so it is what it is. So I'm struggling with that part of it. It's not my favorite task that I've ever done. And it probably won't be the favorite task that I ever do. But at the same time, it's something that I feel is very important that you get in touch with where your food comes from. So I got into hunting years ago. Hunting doesn't bother me at all. Wow, these tomatoes have grown together. And that's rope burn, so that's fun. But hunting doesn't bother me because it's natural. You know, the animal is living its best life and then it's gone. End of story. Nothing else happening. No raising it to kill it. Nothing like that. It's about as humane as you can get. But I remember when I was younger and I told my grandfather I was getting into hunting, and my grandfather was the best cook. Man, he could cook anything. And especially meats. Man, it was rich, good, Norwegian cooking. Man, you couldn't go wrong. But when I told him I was hunting, he made this face. He didn't understand where food came from, which was amazing to me. At the time he grew up, got a bee chasing me, that he didn't really understand, or didn't, I think he understood, but he just didn't like the concept of where the food came from. And so that was really a big issue for me. And that's when I realized that we have to understand our food doesn't come in a plastic pouch from nature. It comes from out there, and it's the same with our vegetables, you know. And you know as well as I do, when you grow your own food, you're getting totally different flavor profiles. And you can even pick the flavor profile that you want to grow in your garden, which, I mean, give me a shout out if you can't say that that's not amazing. So I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know there was a plant over here. It's so big and fallen over. So this is gonna be interesting to see how this works out. I'm playing with my spacing this year on these tomatoes, and I wanted to see if 4 tomatoes would be too much in these beds. And when they're small, it's not, but this is gonna be the final judge. I think 4 tomatoes is too much. What do you think? Looks a little crowded to me. A little bit better. We'll make it, as soon as they kind of sit here for about a week, we'll tighten them up. The roots should hold them a little bit better. And we'll see, this one's still pretty far back, so we'll adjust that. But yeah, I think 4 tomatoes may be a little bit too much. It's getting a little bit crazy in there. But look at that. Red maters, looking good. So it's the whole idea about not being in touch with where your food comes from and what you're doing with it. And it's really disheartening because there's too many people in the world that are just dependent on the food system. And once you plant a garden, you're no longer dependent. You are part of the solution. You are making it happen. Like I said, you may not be growing everything, but what you're absolutely doing is you're relieving the pressure on the system, and you're building a knowledge base that can help you at some point in the future. So I started all of this because when the shit hit the fan, I wanted to be able to grow food. And yeah, the shit hasn't hit the fan. We still have power. We still have all the stuff we need. We've gone through short periods where access to food was difficult, but it wasn't impossible, but we had our food available to us. Now, some of you may be oblivious to this. I doubt that you are, because you are doing what you're doing. But in our country, there is something called food deserts, which simply means there is not access to fresh food. What does that mean? Well, basically what that means is there's mostly fast food. There's very few grocery store stuff like that. This is driven by multiple things. There's a lot of different theories out there. Really, if you break it all down, it's based off of capitalism. There's not enough money in the area to support a grocery store, especially at the prices we're at now. So people don't put grocery stores in low income areas. So you start to get food deserts. Now, what does that mean for a gardener? Well, if you live in an area like that and you have a garden, guess what? You're not in a food desert at your house. You are part of the solution for that area. And it's one of those things that's really complicated, because starting up a garden is expensive, but if you keep at it year after year after year, it gets cheaper and makes a difference. And it doesn't cost as much, and it pays for itself, is really what I'm saying. And there's all kinds of ways to save money in gardening, you know, reusing. You know, you can't throw money at a problem. You can throw knowledge at a problem, but you can't throw money on a problem. I've seen it time and time again. So, I mean, take these squashes that are riddled with squash vine borers right now. There's no money I can put on that, but I can tell you that for a $3.50 pack of seeds, a pile of dirt, and a couple pots, I can restart it and grow it and get the food over again. And I've got, I mean, as riddled as these are and as jacked up as they are, we've got 6 or 7 zucchinis in here that are multiple meal zucchinis that need to be harvested. So, you know, it's one of those things that over time, it builds and builds and builds. You need to remember that. You know, as a group of collective gardeners, we need to remember that you can't just throw money at a problem. And so we try to be frugal about our spending in the garden. We try to be realistic, and we try to be down to earth about it. I use the term for my garden rustic, but really what rustic means is cheap, okay? Reusing materials, wood beds, you know, topsoil, you know, getting by on the fertilizers that you have, shopping on sales, starting your own seeds, all that stuff, you know, it all works out well. using different materials that aren't marketed to you by gardening companies specifically. You can buy a hoop system, you can make a hoop system. You can buy a garden bed, you can make a garden bed. You can buy a trellis or you can make a trellis. You know, we get a lot of questions. So our cattle panel here, our peas have gone bye-bye, and we actually just planted our black-eyed peas the other day. But always get questions about the cattle panels. So this trellis, which is 4 feet across, well, it's like 4.5 feet across, and 16 feet long, going all the way, costs $20 for all of that. And this will not rust. It will last. It's easy to put up. The hardest part is transporting it. You know, that's the worst part. You know, if you take these trellises over here, we're not going to go to this one because the bees are going crazy right now. We had a bunch of rain and they're all going out, going doo-doo right now. So we'll come over here. So we use this rebar wire, and it's rusty. It's supposed to be rusty. That's the point, because this is actually, this rust makes it easier for the plants to grip it as it climbs, right? This will last forever. This costs like $4 for this. And then another, these stakes are kind of big, but these are probably $10 each. So, you know, you're talking $24 for that. It lasts. And so that's really important. That's what makes you a producer. You're figuring out problems. You're thinking on your feet. You're working your mind. You're working your body. You're producing your food, which in turn leads to other things like preserving, cooking, all of these things, which greatly enhances your self-reliancy. So that's what I love about this. I love being a producer. I love the idea of it, and the self-reliancy thing, just the act of doing it all really exercises your mind and your body and keeps you going and really keeps it moving in the right direction. And it's very, very rewarding. I mean, you know, you come out here and you look at this garden and you get reminded how much work you've done, and you get that instant gratification. It's instant once it's grown, but you get that instant gratification and you get that sense of reward from what you've done. So hats off to you. You are a producer, and I'm proud of you, and you keep up the good work. Goodbye.